Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands we're joining from today.
I'm joining from Lisarow on the lands of the Darkinjung people.
And I am joining from the lands of the Nyungbul people of the Bundjalung Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. We acknowledge their deep and ongoing connection to land, waters, language and culture, and recognise that sovereignty was never ceded. This always was and always will be Aboriginal land. Sarah Carney is the National Chief Technology Officer for Microsoft Australia and New Zealand, and with over 20 years of experience across 3 continents, Sarah has built a career that bridges strategy, business development, and technical leadership, but is also well renowned for her sense of humour and keeping things light, which is how we know her. She began her professional journey in the Australian Army, went on to hold senior roles in global law firms and at Telstra, and for nearly a decade she's been driving enterprise transformation at Microsoft, where we are lucky enough at Crybaby to have the privilege to work with her. She's also co-chair of Microsoft's Global Military Employee Resource Group, creating pathways for veterans into technology. Welcome, Sarah. We are so excited to have you on the show. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. This will be
Yay. I learned this about you, Sarah, in my very deep research before today, that you began your career in the Army. I did not know this, but it makes so much sense after working with you on set. No, just kidding. Can you talk us through your early career and what led you to the tech space?
I wish there was some logical pathway. There is no logical pathway here. I spent my whole childhood thinking I wanted to be a lawyer. My dad was a lawyer. I was like, yep, I'm going to be a lawyer. You know, that classic, you'd say you're going to be the thing your parents are. I must have been year 11 when army recruiters came to college. They were like, but you could join the army and fly helicopters. And I was like, yes, I want to do that thing. And so this whole plan I'd had just went out the window, and I signed up to join the army because I thought that was a great idea. And I had in my head this really idealized version of what it would be like to be in the army. I was going to fly peacekeeping missions. It was going to be great. Obviously, that is not the reality of all of the things. I actually shattered my ankle, and they gave me a choice saying, look, you can get out or you can stay in and do a desk job. In my head, because I was like, yes, helicopters and flying, I was like, desk job? Heck no, that's not me. But of course I was qualified to do absolutely nothing. So I applied for every job under the sun. I thought, no, I'll go back and do law, which is where I'd started off my thinking. And it turns out I don't really like law, but I love lawyers. I love working with smart people. And so I found this new career pathway in marketing and business development for law firms. And that's how I ended up traveling across the world for a decade. And then I was coming back to Australia, and Telstra had an opening, and I thought, well, I've never worked in telecommunications. What could go wrong? So transitioned to telco, and from there a friend was like, you have to come and work at Microsoft. And I was like, no, I'm all good. I love Telstra. Everything's fine. She's like, just come have a chat. And I was sitting in the foyer of the Canberra office, and they have a big screen playing all the things that Microsoft's involved with. And I just watched these videos about the philanthropic work that Microsoft does. And I was like, I want to work here. Like, I want to work at a place where they do these things. And yes, I was sold, and there you go. The rest is history. A decade later, here we are.
Also, with the army, you said it wasn't what you thought it was going to be. Can you tell us what it was?
I loved it. Don't get me wrong. Like, the army was amazing. But I think at the time when I joined, we were in a lot of peacekeeping operations, but that just isn't what the whole army is about. And so I think I just had this idealized notion of flying in and saving people, and that's just not what it is. There is a whole lot more to the military than that. And it was such a great learning experience. I have friends who are still in, and I love connecting with them. It was an amazing experience. But I wish I had a good story about how I shattered my ankle. It's really stupid. I was playing rugby for the army, and I shattered my ankle, and big giant metal plate and a whole lot of pins and no feeling in my right leg, and so I wasn't allowed to fly. That was the problem. Like, no more flying. And so here we are.
It sounds like you feel like you need to help people. Is that what's been driving your career journey, do you think?
I normally frame it as a need to serve. It's really interesting, and I catch myself often saying it to people when they message me, And I'm like, how may I be of service? Like I think it's something inherent in wanting to serve. And I can't explain. It sounds such a wonderful, lauded, highfalutin concept, but actually I just don't know what it is. I love helping others. And so I think to sign up for military service, you have to have an element of that. And that's something just is pervasive for me, is to be of service.
And that's what ultimately what interested you in that video for Microsoft. You said it was the philanthropic element.
To be of service. So I like it,
or to make a difference kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can frame it any way you want. Like, it is my favourite piece, is getting to help not-for-profits and working with a huge range of customers where they're grappling with big challenges and problems, and we get to try and help them find a new pathway forward. So to be of service is normally how I frame it.
And so do you think that's you've worked across, a huge range of different industries across a lot of continents, but do you think that's the through line for those experiences? And I guess, how has that shaped you as a leader today, having, worked across all those industries?
I wish it was the common thing. Because that has intentionality behind it. Like, it makes it sound like I really made these intentional choices. So much of what my career has been is accidental. I love making a plan, but so often, and it's that classic thing, no plan survives the first shot fired in battle. It's a military saying. It's the same in life. You make here's my 5-year plan, and then everything goes out the window. And so no, it definitely wasn't the thread, and particularly the decade overseas, they were accidental choices. I moved to the UK because I was following love. Wait, isn't that what we do?
Yeah.
And then that fell apart. So then there were things that I had to make choices about to live there. And then someone came and said to me, do you want to move to the Middle East? And I made zero sensible assessments. I was like, I can't think of a good reason not to. So no, I wish it was this wonderful common thread of service that led me on those, but a lot of them were accidental choices. But what I have found now is that if a role does not have that in it, then I will not be as successful. Like, it is a thing that I know is a core need for me to be successful.
And what led you to the Middle East?
So it was actually a law firm that I had worked with previously, and they came to me and said, we have a job as the manager for the business development operations for the region. Would you be interested in taking it? And it was based in Abu Dhabi. I had no idea where Abu Dhabi was. And as I said, genuinely, I was like, I can't think of a good reason not to go. So I moved. I knew one person who left 2 weeks later. And I really hadn't made a very sensible assessment of what it would be like being a single woman living in the Middle East at that time. And there are any number of hilarious stories of trying to get my driver's license. Took 5 attempts because they kept saying, but won't your husband drive you? I don't have one. No. So it was a lot of fun and a genuine adventure, but I probably should have done a little bit more thinking about it, or maybe not.
Yeah. Would you do it that way again if you had your time over? Yeah. Okay.
I say I probably should have thought about it more, but I genuinely believe, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
And so for me, that was the perfect way of living that out. What's the worst that could happen? If you hate it, you can move.
Imagine you get asked, for a lot of advice as a bit of a mentor as well. Do you give that advice to, what's the worst that can happen to the people that are worshipping you and your leadership?
So someone came and asked for some mentorship recently, and they had this really tough decision to make around a new job, and they're like, I've been offered this chance. And so I sent them this terrible picture, which I feel really mean about having done, which is, it has, I have a decision to make, and one little arrow says do it, and it says, but I'm scared, and I'm like, do it anyway. That's my, what's the worst that could happen? Stop overthinking it.
Yeah.
You know in your soul that you want to try this thing, try it. Because I think we overthink our way out of opportunity, and particularly women I see do this. Sorry, it's a really female thing. We're like, oh, but I don't know if I can do it. Do it anyway.
And I think that's something that I find, because I had a really similar mantra, which was feel the fear and do it anyway, right? Same thing. And I think when you're younger, I definitely led with that, and I would push myself into the scary situations on purpose. I don't think I do that. I feel like as we get older, perhaps we're a bit more resistant, and obviously there's more at stake as you're older, because you've got kids or you don't, you've got a family or whatever, and obviously earning a living is more important. But have you found that you're less of a risk taker or more?
No, I don't think it's changed. But I think you may, like, you're right. You consider other things in doing that. But I also think about what example am I setting for my son? If I'm sitting here saying to him, you have to push yourself and you have to try new things, and I'm not setting that example myself.
Yeah.
And so I love talking about failure with him, or trying things and not being successful, or as successful as I wanted to be. Because, like, if you don't try things, nothing happens.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And failure's learning, right? Like how to fail is my favorite podcast. It's by a journalist called Elizabeth Day, and she gets celebrities and, well, not just celebrities, but really interesting people to come on and tell their 3 failures in life. Is so good. And it's like the way you learn through failure, because you're trying something new. Otherwise, if you're just succeeding all the time, you're probably not learning.
I love that. And I think actually it's a reflection I've had recently, is we often look at people's career paths or their CVs, and what it doesn't show is those moments of, I hate using the term failure, like moments of learning where things haven't gone right. Like, how many jobs did I apply for before I got this job? How many times have I been rejected on this pathway? And like, nothing of that shows up on those public platforms. So people are like, oh, you've had this incredible pathway. I'm like, I've had a lot of rejection as well.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about it enough. Like, there are those.
We need a LinkedIn element where it's like,
What are your biggest failures?
yeah, and actually being like, hated collaborating with this person in business, but what I learned was
The anti-LinkedIn? No.
anti-LinkedIn.
And they should change the intonation of failure. Instead of as a negative thing, it should be like failure, it's there's an exciting thing. Yeah.
Within Microsoft, which is obviously how we know you, Microsoft sits at the center of enterprise transformation. What are the biggest challenges? So this is a meaty one. What are the biggest challenges that organisations face right now in adopting relatively new technologies? They're not that new to us, but relatively new in the broader sense, like generative AI and agentic AI.
I think it's really fascinating, because actually the technology itself is really easy. And I realize I'm a technologist saying that it's really easy, but when I think about AI particularly, 20% of the challenge they're going to face is technology, 80% is people. It is the change management. It is the fact that we as humans have told ourselves all of these dystopian stories of AI for decades and decades. Like, we love the story of AI will take our jobs and then it will kill us all. Like that's the story we tell ourselves. That's now what every organization has to overcome as they deploy these systems and tools. It's the human element of it. And that's why I see so many of these programs perhaps not going the way they expected, because they haven't thought about the psychological safety of their people. They haven't thought about how they talk about the future of work within that organization, or why they're bringing these tools in. And so those human pieces are actually the really hard thing I see organizations getting stuck on. The technology itself is relatively simple and easy. I mean, we could talk about governance and things like that, which are also really critical pieces. But I think that human piece is just not talked about enough, covered enough, and considered enough in this particular moment. And where does humanity matter? Right? Like, we're talking about, AI is incredibly intelligent. We could debate whether it's more intelligent than humans, but the reality is it can do most of my job already. So where do I matter? What is it that I bring or do now? And for organizations, making a choice about where humanity matters and where AI can play a really pivotal role.
Because this ties into there's so much fear, right? This is not just with enterprise, but on the employee side as well, that there's a lot of fear that it's going to take their jobs. And I even had a kindergarten teacher for my kids say the other day, it's going to take my job soon. And I'm like, no, it won't. What do you say to, Microsoft did make a lot of people redundant recently. So what do you say to, to people, because I'm sure it comes up all the time about this fear that everyone has around AI and it taking away, their passion or their love for what they do.
Yeah. So I'd be really careful, first of all, between causation and correlation. Like, that comment about Microsoft and redundancies are not because of AI. Like, that's
absolutely, yeah,
business operational piece that every organization does, looking at the size and scale of their operations. But often we draw the line between, well, we've got AI and now all these people have no jobs, and we break the two
And
together.
I think that did happen, so yeah.
And I've seen it happen in a number of organizations now where jobs are removed and that is a normal piece of operating a business, and yet we are conflating it with the impact of AI. So we just have to be really careful to pull those two pieces apart. But your question around AI's impact on jobs is really valid. And that's why I always think about like what is truly human, and it's a really hard thing to grapple with because I don't think we spend a lot of time focusing on our humanity and what it is that we do that matters in a moment. And so one of the concepts I'm thinking about a lot at the moment is the societal threshold. Like, where does society want humans? Like, when you go and see a doctor, do you want to talk to a robot? Probably not. You still love that human interaction. Same with that kindergarten teacher you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Like, AI will help them do their job. It will actually lift the load so they can think about all those wonderful creative things they want to do with the kids, but it won't take their job because we want to be taught by people. Like, we need that social context and connection and communication. And so for me, it's thinking about the evolution of jobs. And I think we get so connected to the things we do versus the outcomes we drive. Like, we think about our jobs as, well, I come into the office and I look at this dashboard and then I write this report and then I have this series of calls. And like, if we take that away and we stop thinking about the activities we do and actually then think about the outcomes we deliver, that helps you work out where your role actually sits. Because I can do 60% of my job using AI now, which means now I have time to think about bigger things. Like, I can sit there coming up with new strategies or inventing entirely new ways that we're going to go to market, or thinking about creative ways of engaging with customers, which is why I know this team, which is like short TikTok style videos to teach people about AI. But I can be freed up to do that because I'm creating capacity elsewhere. And I think that's the big piece of it, is don't think about the things you do, think about the outcome that you're trying to drive. That tells you where your humanity matters and the job that exists for you.
So on that note, is there, I guess, for companies that are trying to, adopt AI to improve their business model, obviously it's not something they want to jump into without really considering where, I guess, where it is, where that human empathy is really vital, and how AI can assist but not replace. Mm-hmm. And whose role is that really, ultimately?
Well, I think Catherine was alluding to this sort of cognitive dissonance we see emerging, right? Which is employees really want to use AI at work.
Yeah.
We are bringing our own AI to work if our organization isn't providing it, but we don't want our boss to know, because we're really concerned that if we're really, really good at using AI at work, we will lose our job. And what's underpinning that is that psychological safety. And so what you need is great leadership, and leadership drives the tone. If you have leaders who are being explicit about why we are using AI, what I expect you to use it for, and where I expect you to redirect any spare time, that creates that psychological safety. And so that's one piece of the puzzle, which is you need leadership to really talk about it, because we as individuals want to use AI. We're all bringing our phones.
Such a good answer. Yeah.
But leadership is that critical piece of how you then create the environment that enables adoption, safety, and people wanting to step into this moment.
And so surely, Sarah, that's really important, in education, right? So through schools, sort of bringing that psychological safety into schooling early, so that they're learning how to approach and use and be honest and upfront about their AI use.
It's a huge overhaul, isn't it, of thinking.
Right. And what you're alluding to is, I think the challenge we've got at the moment is we haven't created the new cultural norms that we need. Because alongside all of that, we want to use it and things, we don't want to tell people we're using it because it feels like we're cheating.
Yeah, it does.
Right? And this is like a bit of the talk track that we've created, particularly in education, where you can't use AI, that's cheating. So how do we now evolve these cultural norms that mean that we can use AI openly, and as you said, in schools, teach kids to talk about it.
Yeah.
Using it isn't a bad thing. It's how and where you used it, and then what did you bring to that? Because I can have AI build me the most beautiful essay, but but what's missing? What did it not think about? What do I think is good or bad about it? Like the critical thinking and the creativity.
Different way of thinking.
Yeah. How do we bring ourselves?
It's interesting though, because obviously you're in the tech space. We spend a lot of time in the tech space. Most parents don't spend a lot of time in the tech space and they don't understand it themselves. So what advice would you give to, parents that are taking on these kind of, they are being confronted with this use of AI and they don't know how to prompt or use it themselves in a way? What advice would you give to them?
I really feel like everyone needs to do some kind of education, and I don't mean go out and get a degree. Like my favorite example is an 8-minute video done by Minecraft characters on what AI is, and we're laughing about it, but you know what? It's great for every audience, whether it's your kids, whether it's my favorite video to watch because it tells you what it is and how it works. Like it's a great place to start, and it's 8 minutes. Everyone has 8 minutes. But the big problem I see at the moment is people are worried about AI, and yet they're not using it, learning it, and educating themselves. And so I said to you, we're building new cultural norms. If you're not understanding it, you're not trying to lean in and learn it, you can't hope to shape these new rules that we're creating, the new world that we are stepping into. And so that's my piece of it, is how do we make sure that we're all understanding, we're experimenting, and we're trying, and even safely. There are so many free tools. Go and plan your weekend using one of the free tools and see what it spits out. Doesn't mean you have to use it. There's no right or wrong. You just have to try. And that's my big concern, is every time I ask large audiences, who's gone and done some kind of education, very few people still put their hands up. And I'm like, just step in and do something, anything, because you have to start.
Yeah, get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
Something that I think you and I have chatted a little bit about on social media, Sarah, and I'm excited about, is agentic AI. And the potential there, I see such obviously an opportunity within areas like disability. Can you first of all break down what agentic AI is and why is it necessary?
So agentic AI is sort of this next evolution of generative AI, which is a capability within artificial intelligence to do things autonomously, which usually scares people because the idea of AI systems executing on their activities themselves is what plays into our deep-seated fear of AI. But I like to frame it like the one activity I do that is probably the biggest waste of my time is trying to get a laptop for a new starter. So when someone starts at Microsoft, I have to work out, do I have the right safe limits? Am I allowed to order the laptop? What are the current laptops that are available? What level is this person? Where does it need to be delivered? There's 7 different systems and steps. An agent can now do that for me, where I simply say, I have a new starter, they need a laptop, this is their name. And the system goes away and executes that entire thing autonomously end to end. It works out the levels and it raises the purchase order and it does all of those things. That is agentic AI. It is autonomous and it is just undertaking that. And you know what? If it gets it wrong, the risk is relatively low. It's like one laptop misdelivered somewhere, right? I think that's the piece that people really struggle with, is what else do you automate then? What else could be autonomous? And what controls are in place then to make sure that those systems aren't going off the rails? There's this tension and concern. But yeah, you and I have talked about, disability and how do you create better access. And actually the context we were talking about it in is support for carers, because that's the hard part of it, is that often services focus on the person with a disability, and that is really valuable. But as someone in that caring situation, I don't know what to do in this moment. I need help and I don't know what to do.
Especially when under stress and it's a very specific situation.
Yes. And Claire and I were talking about one, and I was sharing, which is my small human did not want to get out of the car. Does it matter that I'm leaving him in the car? It's parked outside the house. What are the risks in doing this thing? He was just having a moment and it was not happening. And so we were oh my God, we need a system where we can ask questions and get advice. And so there is an opportunity for these systems to help more as we move forward. And actually, I'm really heartened to see some organisations really facing into this. Is a healthcare service provider in New Zealand, Whakarongoro, and they are who you call after hours if you need a nurse or if you are having suicidal thoughts. They provide this breadth of services, and they're using AI to hold those calls, because their concern is what happens to the call they cannot answer.
Yeah.
Right? They have X number of operators. What happens to that call that they cannot get to? And so they're creating this wonderful system that can hold people with care in that moment. And that to me, right? Like that is such a
Just got
superpower.
goosebumps. That's
Yeah, like me too. I'm
beautiful.
saying it. I'm like,
Yeah.
but what an incredible thought process they've gone through, and how do they protect these people and hold them safely while they can get a human to then take them forward? And I think that's the really critical opportunity here, is how do we provide better care, better experience, better inclusion through the use of
And
it.
so, but that's so that's the the people with ethics and doing things the right way. Obviously, there's a big question mark around government enterprise policies and compliance and governance around what it's being used for. So this is based on those kind of uses are based on that company's goodwill. Who should be putting their foot down on the people that aren't using it, because obviously it's so powerful, in the right way?
So it's interesting because, for the most part, I think every organization is deeply concerned about that. Like the number of conversations I have about responsible use of AI is just, it's so heartening, because everybody wants to make sure they're thinking about it in the right way. But I
Yeah.
think we often think we exist in a vacuum, and actually there are so many things in place that already protect us in this moment. Like the Privacy Act already provides protection for us. And yes, maybe there are things that will be added to that over time, but there are so many controls and things that already give us protection. And so the government is looking at what else is needed, because what we don't want to do is create these overly onerous sets of legislation or regulation when we already have this spectrum of things in place. And so I think that is what's really interesting, is how thoughtful the government is being about frameworks and controls and what is actually needed and what will work in the Australian context, looking at what other countries have done and trying to bring the best of that to bear in our space. But we're not existing in a vacuum. There are so many things in place already that protect us around how our data can be used and where it has to be stored, and the privacy of that information, with or without AI, that there is a lot of control already in place.
And how about enterprises themselves? Do they have a responsibility? Oh, and also the individual, do they have a responsibility as well?
Yeah, so as I said, like every company I talk to is really being thoughtful about this, because it's their reputation, it's brand reputation as much as anything. And what is really interesting to me is the pressure being put onto them by perhaps younger generations, particularly. Like the biggest emerging question I get asked at the moment is all around the environmental impacts of AI. And so I love that is coming to the fore more and more, because it's being driven by individuals within organizations as well as organizations themselves, but employees asking this question, which is, this is great, but what is the impact of it? What are we doing? Like, how do we balance these things? So I think enterprises as a whole are really thinking about it, and they're pushing themselves, and their employees are pushing them to think about the hard questions, like, should we do this, and where do we do it, and what matters in this moment?
What do you answer to that? Because I get asked that a lot, because people know that I do a lot of work in tech. What do you answer when they ask about the environmental impact on?
Yeah, so I think, again, like we create these talk tracks around how bad the impact is, and I'm not trying to downplay the fact that AI has definitely had an impact, but globally the uptick is probably not as significant as we all have in our heads. But again, on the flip side, what I see is all IT companies facing into this and thinking about it holistically, because you can't just fix one piece of the puzzle. So yes, we have in place power purchase agreements for renewable energy. That's great. That's one piece of the puzzle. But the data centers itself, the cost of building those environmentally is significant. So we are thinking about green steel, green concrete, different building materials. Like, how do you build differently? Then the biggest cost of the energy isn't necessarily running the systems, it's cooling the data center. So how do we do that differently? So for us, it's this full spectrum approach. From the code we write, you can write more efficient code that is less energy intensive. So from the code, right? So from the code we write to the cables, like creating less energy intensive cabling, using different cooling systems. So we don't water cool our servers any longer. We use different cooling mechanisms. So every aspect of the system we look at. But my favorite story I have to share is, in Scandinavia, they actually pump the heat created by the data centers into the local villages as a communal heating resource. Right? Like, how cool is that? Is thinking about what impact you might have and how that thing could be used in a different way. So I love that.
That's a really great idea.
Yeah, it's going into an ecosystem.
Yeah, it doesn't work in Australia. Obviously, we don't need more heat in the environment. But I like the thinking, because it's challenging us to come at the problem in completely different ways. And as I said, So, and different energy resources. And I think there is an opportunity for this uptick in AI to help be a driver for renewable energies in a different way. Like, we want firming technologies.
Yeah.
Like, we want batteries that can store the scale of energy we need for data centers. Like, how do we do that hand in hand?
It's like the quicker we move in this direction, it's fueling other industries to move as quickly to find these solutions.
Like a
I
responsible
hope so.
adoption kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you hope, yes. Okay. Mood flip. You also run Microsoft's Employee Military Resource Group. Can you talk to us about this, what it is and why it's so important to you?
Yeah, so when I left the army, as I said, I felt like I was qualified for nothing. I obviously now appreciate transferable skills so much more deeply, but I applied for every job under the sun. So I had a degree in 4 years of military service and I could not get a job. I couldn't get a job scooping ice cream. I couldn't get a job like night security. I could not get a job.
Wow.
And it was actually a veteran, so someone who had served, who gave me my first job out of the military. And it gave me an appreciation for how those doors sometimes need to be opened for you. And so it's a conscious piece of what Microsoft does, which is understanding service and how that translates into the skills that we actually need. I know you were joking about me being like, right, this is what we need to do, like, get the things done. That is a great skill set that people bring, the adaptability, the fact that they can do things on the fly, that things can change in the moment.
Being assertive, taking charge.
Yeah, and so the resource group it does two things. One is it provides people who have transitioned from the military a space of people who understand the context that they built careers in, and then can help them translate that, because most people who've served in the military have never had to write a CV. They don't know how to do job interviews. They're like, I don't understand this corporate space where I have to manage my own career, because in the military they're like, next promotion will be in 6 months' time. Whereas now I have to try and negotiate that with my boss. Like, what's the promotion look like? And so it provides a space to help people be more successful, but it then also helps create pathways into the organization. And so Microsoft has created a series of different programs, one of them being the Microsoft Software and Systems Academy, which is a 17-week course where we retrain people who have exited service into a range of different skills that we need, so software engineering or cloud engineering, and so they can actually then have that pathway into a tech role.
Yeah, amazing.
And as the national CTO, I'm going to flip again. You are tasked with translating the Microsoft's global vision into a local impact. So I'm super interested to find out how you approach bridging that gap between a full global strategy and localizing the execution.
Yeah, I think there are probably two things that I'm really good at, which is why I've worked in so many different industries. One is empathy. Like, I'm very good at empathizing and sort of getting into the shoes of somebody else. And so trying to work out what that means by industry and locally, and what are the different nuances or challenges, very good. And being a translator, so I can take the really crazy, which is, we want to land quantum computing in Australia, and be like, okay, like, how do we make that simple and understandable without sending people quivering under a table? And so for me, it's those two pieces, is like, what is the national context? What are the challenges that are specifically Australian and real challenges, not just the things that we think are the challenges, but what are the real challenges? And then what in our strategy actually helps line up against that? Because there's no point pushing something that will never land, or it lacks context. And so it's the bringing together of those two pieces of the puzzle. But we have such a huge, amazing team that do so much work in that translation piece as well, and trying to find the right spaces to have conversations. Because you can shout the same message from every rooftop and no one will hear it, but you like finding the right spaces and rooms, and how you open those doors, I think, is really important. And we have an incredible team that do that beautifully.
What are the main differences pitching it into a US market, and then versus getting it into an Australian market? What do you see as the main differences?
So the big one is usually industry. So in Australia particularly, we have very particular industries that just don't translate well globally, like mining. Like, mining is bread and butter for us, and yet there are very few international markets where that has the same weight as it does here. So we are leaders when it comes to that conversation. It's really interesting when we talk about the significance of it for our GDP versus trying to pitch that into the UK. Like they're like, what do you mean digging holes? I mean, I'm being flippant, but you get the idea that like industry and agriculture is the other one. Like agriculture and agri-tech is really significant for us, but not elsewhere. Like that's not a thing that they think about as much. And so usually it's industry that we struggle with, where they're like, yes, we would like you to talk about manufacturing. And I'm like, Australia doesn't have a lot of that. Like we do have some, we don't have a lot. So that's probably not going to be the thing that lands, but retail, absolutely. Like we have great, strong retailers who are globally leading. Like let's do that one. So those are probably the industries, a big one. The other one that's really interesting though is we tend to be quite agile. And so what I find funny is that our local customers are always looking to the US for what are they doing. And actually I'm like, we are ahead. Like be brave and blaze the pathway, because we are more agile and often we can think of and see different opportunities. And so there's this wonderful tension where we're like, what are they doing in the US? I'm like, no, they should be looking at what you're doing. Like,
but maybe that's one of the other differences, right? That we're, we're a bit insecure.
Potentially, But when I look at our banking systems is really advanced, and our banks are doing really incredible and innovative things. And I think that's now getting recognized more and more globally. But so often the first question is like, what's Bank of America doing? I'm like, nothing. You are thinking about things so much more advanced than they are. Like, so those are probably the two really big things.
Why is that? Why do you think that we do look, is it just because, I guess, historically the US is doing, and they're, I guess, progressing more quickly, or why are we not backing ourselves
and lacking confidence?
So I mean, traditionally, of course, it's a much larger market, so there is usually a bigger spread, and therefore they have more investment. They have more money that they can invest into their own internal research and development. So there is a good reason to consider US organizations and what they're doing, but actually Asia in this moment has been the fastest moving. Like generative AI in Asia, like we blew all the other markets out of the water. We consume more AI in this region than anywhere else, and yet for some reason we've just built that muscle of constantly looking to North America versus in our own backyard. And like some of the incredible innovation happening across the Asia region, and I mean like from India all the way across to New Zealand, like this whole Asia Pacific region has just been so forward thinking. And that's the thing. I just think we've built this muscle of looking to North America, and actually if we just looked a little bit closer to home, we'd find some really interesting innovation.
Bit of a segue again. What has been the most pivotal moments for you in your career as a woman in a leadership role?
I have never been as conscious of being the only woman in the room as I have been in tech, which is so bizarre given I started in the army and then I went into law, which is like the most like male-dominated environment. But I just never noticed it the way I do now, and I often I still see that, and I'm like, a decade on, how am I still feeling this? How are we still having this conversation? So that has probably been a really stark piece for me, and I now have more of an appreciation of the struggle people face into, which is I tend to be fairly oblivious to these things. I'm like, well, whatever, it's my room, I'll own it, it's fine. But I get that that's not the same for everyone. So it is giving me this incredible consciousness of where other people sit and where they may need support. And I think that for me has been this real awakening. Again, like I've unconsciously bumbled my way through decades in male-dominated environments, not thinking about it. And I'm really grateful for the women who at Microsoft particularly have advocated for me, but also pushed me to do more. Because I used to hate the saying, you can't be what you can't see. I'm like, just create your own pathway. How hard is that? But I get that is really naive of me to think that. And I get that actually being able to see somebody else blazing a path or being somewhere you want to be helps. And the other one is lift while you rise. Like, how can you help other women be successful as you go? Like, I used to think of, I can turn anything into a competition. I am the most competitive person ever. I'm like,
what? No.
I know. You should see the bloodbath that is our Easter egg family egg and spoon race. Hilarious. Anyway, cheating abounds. Anyway, and I used to think of career like that as well, which is like there's only so much cake and it is all mine and I cannot share it with anybody else, like that very competitive approach to it. Whereas I now appreciate that it's like career is not cake. There are so many opportunities that the more we share and the more we amplify, the better it is. And the change we can then make to that first piece I said, which is I don't want to be the only woman in the room. So how many more women can I help be in the room? Like, how do I do that consciously?
Yeah.
Can I ask why you feel like that in tech versus, because it is unusual, you know, you have been in the army and, you know, and in law firms. So why do you feel like that in tech?
I don't know if it's like I've had an awakening, like perhaps it was always there and it just never occurred to me that it was there. And because I've had really great mentors and role models here, it actually has opened my eyes to the fact that it's there, because I'm sure it's always been there. I've just blithely oblivious to it. Versus now where actually I'm like, okay, this is a real thing. Like, I can see the problem because I am the only woman sitting on this stage or in this room, or like I can see it really clearly. So I think it was always there. I just was happily oblivious to it and doing, and I said because it was selfish. I was like, my career, my thing, eat the cake, don't care about anybody else. Whereas now I'm like,
But now you're noticing.
ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
I heard this wonderful story about the Obama administration where they faced a similar challenge where all the roles were held by, senior roles were held by men. And so the women decided to amplify. So it'd be like, Claire, that was a great idea and I'd like to build on it. And they would acknowledge who the idea had come from and then amplify or add. And over time, what they saw was a complete flip in who then held those senior roles. And I just love that as a story of how you can actually advocate and create change, right? Like, it's such a great way.
Acknowledge
So
and add.
strategic, yeah.
Yeah. But it's always, because often what happens is you'll say something in a meeting and, you know, 10 minutes later, someone else will have the same idea and everyone will be like, that's a great idea. And you're like, I truly said that. And so it's the, like, how do you keep paying homage to the idea that was shared and the person who shared it? Like, Claire, great idea. I love that. Catherine had this great idea. I want to add to it. And like, actually building that. And so they saw this huge shift and I'm like, yes, like those little things, doing those little things can make a difference.
And do you
And
do
it's such
that,
a positive,
Sarah?
yeah.
Do you do that, Sarah, as a leader?
Yes. Yeah, it's really funny because I always love to pay credit where credit is due. And so it's always been a thing, and I'm really bad at weeing on things. Like, we had this idea. I'm like, no, we didn't. I did. They did. Like, stop weeing on the thing. So it's something that I definitely try and consciously do more now, which is like trying to really acknowledge and credit the person or the idea for amplification, because it is like the more we do it, the better the environment is, and that everyone recognizes the great idea that perhaps went unheard because they didn't say it in the perfect way for everybody in that room in that moment or something.
If we look to 3 years ahead, what shifts do you expect in how enterprise are using in Australia, AI, data and cloud to transform their businesses? Where do you see it?
Yeah, so I think we're moving through these evolutions at the moment. Like I've been toying with how I frame it. So I feel like we're in app mode at the moment. Everyone's got AI apps. And then we're going to move into agent mode where everyone will have AI agents. And then I feel like the evolution beyond that is what I call life mode, where we no longer think about the interfaces as much. We just ask for the things we want. Like, I won't care about the internet because I'm just asking for what I want and it will go and find it in whatever form it is in. So I think this is the evolution that we're on. So app mode, agent mode, life mode is the kind of pathway that I see. And organizations are in different places along that. So maybe 3 years is a little too soon to think about life mode. We'll probably still be in agent mode by then. But I feel like that's the sort of path or the trajectory we're following. And some organizations might get to life mode a little bit sooner.
Life mode sounds so good.
Yeah.
Just like no devices, just like
Yeah. Sounds great.
You have a moment which is you have to be so good at writing a prompt, and it's funny, like we think we're good at asking questions. In fact, a little thing I love doing with work experience students is getting them to draw how to make a piece of toast. Like, you ask that really simple piece and every single person will do it fundamentally differently. Like, someone will draw wheat in a field and harvesting it and turning that into flour. Someone will draw a bag of bread and a piece of bread and then the toaster. And someone will draw going to the supermarket. Like it. So that one simple thing, which is how do you make a piece of toast, is thought of fundamentally differently by everyone. And so that's the problem when you come to prompting, which is you ask for something and you mean something totally different to what I mean. And so that life mode piece to me starts to get rid of the ability to either prompt or not prompt, because it understands your context. So I can
Yeah.
draw out what I want it to be, or I can put an arrow, like, no, not that thing you wrote there, I want that thing over there. Like, it doesn't require the same ability to put into words perfectly what you want. So that's why I'm like, life mode is, I'm dreaming of that because I need that.
It feels like it's, totally, you've given it your individual style guide or brand book, and it's just, it gets you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've nailed your style guide,
But hopefully I won't have to work out how to give it that. It will learn it over time as well.
Yeah.
Like, it knows my tone, it knows what I like, it knows my preferences, and so that becomes so much more useful. How many different platforms do you operate across? How many different communications channels? Which one didn't I respond to? Like, I'm having this, like, so there's a text message that someone sent me 2 weeks ago that I didn't respond, like that.
Yeah.
How annoying is that when you're DMing?
Which one's on it?
You're on WhatsApp, and you're like, I know someone sent me something, and where is it?
Yeah, like,
totally.
Where is this thing? Just find the thing.
Yeah, find the thing. Sarah, thank you so much. We're definitely going to have to do a part 2 because there's so many elements we didn't even really get to the nitty gritty of your story and the many overseas jaunts and adventures. But thank you so much for sharing with us and for joining us on the podcast. It was a great interview and you're an incredible leader. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So that's it for this episode of Femmebot, the podcast powering women in tech. If you liked what you heard, hit subscribe and share.